In the heart of Hawaii, where the ocean meets jagged cliffs and tropical forests rise toward the sky, there are places shaped by fire. Volcanic parks, alive with steam vents, blackened lava fields, and glowing craters, are some of the most awe-inspiring landscapes on Earth. But beneath their natural beauty, these parks carry stories of anger, tragedy, and restless spirits. The ground shakes where no eruption comes. Ghostly figures drift along old lava flows. Whispers echo from steam vents, calling out in languages long forgotten. Some hikers report seeing shadows moving across craggy ridges. Some feel sudden heat or cold where the air should be calm. Some leave trails of footprints that disappear without explanation. These volcanic parks are alive, not just with molten rock, but with memory. Every eruption, every lost soul, every ritual performed on sacred land has left a mark that cannot be erased. Tonight, we journey through Hawaii to uncover the most haunted volcanic parks, where fire meets shadow, and the past refuses to rest. Hello, my dear friend. I hope you are safe and comfortable, because what we are about to explore is far from ordinary, far from the sunlight that warms the beaches, and far from the paths where tourists wander without worry. Hawaiian volcanic parks are home to the Iceland's greatest power and their deepest mysteries. These lands are sacred, ancient, and dangerous. For centuries, they have witnessed natural disasters, lost travelers, and cultural ceremonies that demanded blood, fire, and respect. People have vanished on lava fields. Volcanic vents have claimed the careless. Legends of spirits, both protective and vengeful, have been passed down through generations. Visitors have reported seeing figures that vanish when approached. Ghostly chants echo across empty craters. Sudden mists appear along hiking trails, carrying whispers and sorrow. Before we step closer to these volcanic landscapes, let me ask you something. If you found yourself alone on a lava field at night and saw shadows moving across glowing cracks in the earth, would you approach, or would you retreat before the ground itself seemed to watch you? Take a deep breath. And let us walk together through the haunted volcanic parks of Hawaii. Hawaii Volcanoes National Park on the Big Island stretches across a land born of fire and shaped by centuries of volcanic activity. By day, the park is a place of stark beauty. Jagged lava flows wind across the earth like frozen rivers of black glass. Trails carve paths through forests, craters, and barren plains, revealing a landscape both ancient and continually changing. The park is alive, even when no one is watching. As night falls, the familiar landscape takes on a different presence. Shadows stretch across the rough terrain. Steam from vents glows faintly in moonlight. And the smell of sulfur hangs lightly in the air. The lava fields, once solid and inert in the light of day, seem to pulse with quiet energy. As though aware of each footstep, each breath, each presence. Hikers who venture after dark often report unusual sights. Figures appear along the lava flows, dressed in traditional Hawaiian attire. Moving with deliberate calm, they walk with purpose, pausing to look across the terrain, then continuing. The figures vanish when approached, leaving only the impression that the land is not empty, that something familiar and ancient still roams these flows. The figures are seldom threatening. They move with reverence and rhythm, as though honoring the land, observing rituals that have existed long before modern visitors arrived. Watching them, even from a distance, creates a sense of awe. The experience is intimate yet elusive, leaving the observer aware that the park carries layers of history and culture not immediately visible. Alongside the visual phenomena, the sounds of the park change at night. Steam vents hiss continuously, releasing pressure from beneath the surface. The noise carries across the lava fields, forming an eerie accompaniment to the shadows moving along the rocks. Some hikers report whispers riding the wind, voices low and melodic, speaking in Hawaiian words that are unfamiliar to most. The language is soft, blending with the hiss of steam and the subtle rustle of nighttime creatures, forming a soundscape that is both haunting and reverent. The ground itself contributes to the feeling of presence. Lava flows, cooled yet uneven, shift slightly underfoot. Tiny tremors sometimes ripple through the rocks, subtle and almost imperceptible, yet enough to make the earth beneath feel alive. In moments of quiet, hikers have felt invisible hands brush their shoulders. A fleeting sensation that is unmistakably present but leaves no trace. These experiences are not sudden or overwhelming. They build gradually, a layered awareness that the land is active, watching, and responsive. The interaction between steam, shadow, and earth creates a living environment. One that speaks through movement, temperature, and sound rather than words. The history of the park reinforces this perception. Who practiced rituals, offered prayers, and lived in harmony with its energy. And perhaps remnants of those practices remain in ways that the modern eye cannot fully see. Night visitors often feel this connection. The figures in traditional attire. The whispers in Hawaiian. The subtle pressure of the eartha. Each element combines to create the impression that the past persists in the present. The park is not simply a collection of geological formations. It is a space of memory, culture, and presence, alive in ways that extend beyond human perception. Even when there are no visible figures, the landscape feels inhabited. The lava fields seem to shift subtly under starlight. Steam rises in curling tendrils, casting moving shadows that appear intentional. Every crack, ridge, and crevice in the cooled flows seems to vibrate with a quiet rhythm. A pulse from deep within the earth that echoes the long history of creation, destruction, and renewal. Visitors walking these trails at night become acutely aware of their own presence. Each step must be deliberate, each movement measured. The park demands attention and respect. Even silence is active, filled with sound, energy, and awareness. The combination of earth, steam, and shadow heightens the senses, sharpening observation and intuition in ways impossible to replicate during the day. As dawn approaches, the energy shifts again. Shadows retreat with the rising sun. The figures vanish, the whispers fade. The lava fields appear solid and inert. The park resumes its daytime persona, a stunning natural landscape formed over millennia, serene and seemingly still. Yet those who have experienced the park at night carry the memory of its other side. They recall the whispers carried on the steam, the invisible touches on shoulders, and the subtle tremors beneath their feet. These moments create a sense that Hawaii Volcanoes National Park is alive in a manner beyond the visible, beyond the ordinary, connected to culture, history, and the earth itself. The park remains a place of wonder and reverence. A landscape shaped by fire and maintained by the ongoing pulse of the planet. Its volcanoes, craters, and lava fields are more than geological formations. They are living reminders of the energy beneath the surface. The traditions of those who have walked here before. And the continuing presence that can be felt when darkness falls. Hawaii Volcanoes National Park on the Big Island is not merely a destination. It is an experience of connection, observation, and awareness. At night, the park reveals its depth, its life, and its spirit. Reminding visitors that the earth itself can hold memory, carry presence, and awaken senses in ways that challenge the boundaries between past and present, seen and unseen. Haleakala National Park rises above the island of Maui, its summit stretching high into the sky, where clouds meet cinder cones and valleys fall away into shadow. By day, the landscape is breathtaking. Sunrise paints the crater with colors of gold and crimson, bathing volcanic ridges and jagged rock formations in warm light. Trails wind along ridges and lava flows, and the quiet air carries the scent of volcanic soil, native shrubs, and distant ocean breezes. The park feels timeless, a place of vastness and solitude that invites reflection and awe. As daylight fades, the summit changes dramatically. Shadows lengthen along trails, stretching across rocky terrain. The cinder cones take on a darker tone, their shapes stark and unfamiliar. The cinder cones take on a darker tone, their shapes stark and unfamiliar. What was serene and inviting during the day becomes quiet and unpredictable at night. What was serene and inviting during the day becomes quiet and unpredictable at night. The air grows cooler, and the wind sweeps across the crater with sudden bursts, carrying the faint smell of earth and stone. The air grows cooler, and the wind sweeps across the crater with sudden bursts, carrying the faint smell of earth and stone. Visitors who remain after dark report an immediate sense of difference. The trails feel longer. Every step echoes. Sounds carry farther than expected. The landscape feels alive, not in motion, but in attention. As if it senses every movement along its ridges and valleys. Shadows are often observed moving across trails, sometimes darting between rocks or following the path of hikers. They appear humanoid at first glance, yet vanish when approached. The darkness makes details impossible to discern, leaving only the impression of movement. These shadows appear for moments at a time, often just long enough to trigger awareness and then disappear, leaving the observer uncertain of what was real. Figures are reported near the cinder cones, sometimes standing still, sometimes appearing to move along the crater's edge. They are rarely clear in form, often reduced to dark shapes against the night sky. Approaching these figures yields no encounter. They vanish into the darkness as suddenly as they appear. Leaving only the echo of imagined footsteps or the faint shifting of dust and gravel. Visitors often describe sudden chills that arise despite clear skies and calm conditions. The temperature drops abruptly, localized to a single spot along a trail or near a cinder cone. The chill is not explained by wind or altitude alone. The chill lingers just long enough to be felt keenly, then fades as if carried away by unseen hands. Whispers in Hawaiian sometimes accompany these experiences, low and melodic, carried on the wind. The words are repeated in small phrases, familiar in sound but not in meaning to those who hear them. They appear to drift without source, rising from valleys, along trails, or across ridges. The cadence of the whispers is soft but deliberate, a presence that is both intimate and distant at once. The combination of shadows, figures, chills, and whispers creates a heightened sense of awareness. Trails that were simple to navigate in daylight become complex and tense at night. Steps are measured carefully, attention is focused on every detail. Every sound or movement is perceived as potentially meaningful. The park's vastness amplifies each sensory experience, making the night feel both expansive and deeply personal. Those who spend hours on the summit after dark often describe a feeling of being observed. It is not threatening, but persistent. Awareness of presence is heightened. The surrounding landscape seems to watch as much as it is watched. The combination of silence, natural shadows, and the faint sound of whispers creates a profound sense of attention and memory embedded in the environment. The volcanic landscape itself adds to the effect. Jagged ridges, uneven trails, and cinder cones catch light and shadow in ways that distort perception. Trails intersect at unusual angles. Every shift in posture or viewpoint changes what is visible. The terrain magnifies uncertainty, making shadows and figures more enigmatic. Some hikers report feelings of timelessness while navigating the summit at night. Minutes feel like hours. Steps echo far behind. The crater feels alive. As if aware of the passage of each person and adjusting the perception of space accordingly. The whispers reinforce this impression. Their repetition creating a subtle rhythm. Ties observer and environment together. Despite the intensity of these experiences, daylight returns clarity and safety. The summit regains its colors, trails become distinct, and the chill and shadows fade. Figures vanish with the morning light. The whispers no longer carry, replaced by wind and bird calls. The crater resumes its daytime character, serene and awe-inspiring once more. Visitors leave with a strong impression of the summit's otherworldly qualities. They remember the shadows that moved without form. Figures that appeared near cinder cones. The sudden chills. And the faint Hawaiian whispers that seemed to surround them. These experiences linger, creating a sense of the summit as both beautiful and mysterious. Haleakala National Park continues to rise above Maui, unchanged in its geography. Yet profoundly different when night falls. By day, it offers solitude, beauty, and reflection. By night, it becomes a place where history, landscape, and unseen presence converge. For those who traverse its trails after dark, the summit is an immersive experience. Every shadow, every chill, every whisper is a reminder that the land carries memory. It observes. It responds. It endures. Haleakala is timeless, vast, and alive in ways that cannot be fully explained. Offering visitors a connection to the island that is as profound as it is mysterious. Mauna Loa dominates the landscape of Hawaii's Big Island, its vast slopes rising from sea level to over 13,000 feet. The scale is breathtaking, a reminder of Naturia's power and permanence. Hikers venturing along the high ridges feel both awe and isolation. Trails wind through hardened lava flows. Past cinder cones. And across barren slopes where vegetation struggles to take hold. The air is thin and often dry, carrying faint sulfur from vents. And the scent of volcanic rock warmed by the sun. Silence dominates in places. Broken only by the wind or the distant rush of water flowing from mountain streams. It is during these quiet moments that the volcano seems to speak. Footsteps are sometimes heard along the ridgelines, deliberate and rhythmic, echoing across open rock. Along the older lava flows, faint glowing shapes occasionally appear. They move slowly, tracing paths over blackened rock, their form indistinct but perceptible. The glow is soft, not intense like molten lava, but enough to be noticed in dim light or shadowed areas. Shapes seem to rise and fall with the contours of the terrain, as if alive, drifting along paths carved by previous eruptions. Observers often pause, unsure if their eyes are deceiving them, and when looked at directly, the glow fades or disappears entirely. Smoke and steam rise from vents across the slopes. At times, hikers claim to see eyes within the swirling vapors. Pale and reflective, following movement from a distance. The effect is fleeting, a brief flash that disappears as clouds of smoke shift and expand. The eyes seem alive yet impossible to approach, anchored to no specific creature or form. They hover within the mist, a subtle reminder that the mountain itself is alive with energy and mystery. The combination of sound, light, and perception creates a unique atmosphere. The effect is fleeting, a brief flash that disappears as clouds of smoke shift and expand. The eyes seem alive yet impossible to approach, anchored to no specific creature or form. Every step feels amplified against the silence of hardened lava. Every glow, every shadow, every movement in smoke feels deliberate and watchful. Hikers describe a tension that is difficult to explain, a sense that Mauna Loa is aware of their presence, observing and responding without form or voice. The mountain's energy is constant and restless. Even in periods of dormancy, the ground beneath is alive with pressure. Fumaroles vent gas, rocks settle, and underground movement continues unseen. The volcano has erupted countless times, reshaping valleys and coastlines, and its memory lingers in the very rock that covers its slopes. Every hardened lava flow, every cinder cone, every vent carries a record of fire, pressure, and motion that cannot be erased. At night, the isolation intensifies. Darkness stretches across ridges and valleys, leaving only silhouettes and the faint glimmer of distant stars. Shadows lengthen and shift, and the glowing shapes on lava fields appear more pronounced. Footsteps echo further in the still air, soft whispers of movement along trails where no one walks. The cold night air adds weight to perception, sharpening every sound, every flicker of light, and every shifting shadow. The effect on hikers is profound. Some pause mid-step, feeling observed without knowing by whom or what. Every direction seems alive with potential motion. Even familiar paths feel strange and unpredictable under low light. The combination of natural energy and perceptual shifts can create a sense of unreality, a feeling that the mountain has more layers than the eye can perceive. Despite this, the volcano remains majestic and commanding. There is no hostility in the sights and sounds reported. The footsteps, glows, and eyes do not chase or threaten. They suggest presence, history, and the persistence of energy rather than malice. Visitors describe awe mingled with unease, a recognition of scale, power, and mystery. The mountain impresses not only by size but by the subtle, living pulse that echoes through every ridge, lava field, and vent. Morning brings clarity and relief. Sunlight illuminates the slopes, highlighting red and black lava flows, green patches of growth, and the ridgelines that stretch toward the horizon. Shadows shrink and colors sharpen, and the glowing shapes and eyes vanish. Footsteps seem to fade into memory. The mountain appears serene, though hikers carry with them the imprint of its restless energy and nocturnal phenomena. Mauna Loa remains a place of extremes. It is the largest volcano on Earth, a landscape of fire, rock, and sky. It is a witness to countless eruptions, to human exploration, and to the subtle, unexplained experiences of those who traverse its slopes. These phenomena remind visitors that Mauna Loa is alive in ways both seen and unseen. A mountain that watches, moves, and holds energy beyond comprehension. Even after leaving, hikers carry the mountain with them. The echoes of steps, the memory of glowing shapes, and the sense of eyes watching linger. They are reminders that Mauna Loa is not merely a geological feature, but a living presence, commanding attention and respect. Its restless energy persists day and night, in silence and sound, in light and shadow, marking it as a volcano unlike any other in the world. Mauna Loa invites reverence, caution, and curiosity. It offers beauty, scale, and solitude. But also subtle phenomena that defy explanation. To those who visit, it is a place where nature, history, and mystery converge. And as long as it continues to breathe beneath the earth, Mauna Loa will remain alive, restless, and unforgettable. With Diaresis Lauia Iki crater on the Big Island is a place of raw, elemental beauty. The rim rises sharply above the hardened lava, offering sweeping views of a landscape shaped by fire and time. Once a dramatic lava lake, the crater now stands as a testament to Naturia's power, its cooled surface cracked and jagged, yet still alive with the memory of molten motion. Visitors approaching the rim are struck first by the scale, the way the earth drops away into a vast bowl, black and pocked, glowing faintly in reflected sunlight. Glowing faintly in reflected sunlight. During the day, the crater feels remote and austere. The air carries the faint scent of sulfur and cooled rock. Small shifts of wind bring temperature changes that are noticeable even on warm days, a reminder that this landscape breathes in its own rhythm. The silence is not complete, but it carries weight, the kind of quiet that makes every distant sound sharper, every shadow more defined. Along the rim, visitors sometimes notice sudden shifts in temperature. One moment, the air feels warm from the sun beating down on the blackened rock. The next, a cold draft sweeps across the rim, pressing against skin and carrying a subtle awareness of the crater's depth and emptiness. The effect is brief but profound, grounding those present in the immediacy of the landscape while hinting at forces beyond ordinary perception. As the sun falls behind the surrounding peaks, the crater begins to take on a different character. Shadows lengthen, pooling into the fissures and cracks that mark the lava's once fluid paths. The depth and scale of the crater becomes more pronounced, the edges appearing sharper, more defined, while the floor below recedes into darkness and uneven terrain. The air cools rapidly along the rim, carrying a stillness that feels unusually dense, as though the landscape itself is holding its breath. It is in this quiet that visitors report seeing figures crossing the hardened lava. At first, they appear faint and distant, silhouettes moving along paths that seem impossible to navigate. They walk as if the lava beneath is still molten, their steps deliberate, unhurried, following routes that the eye can barely trace. Approaching the figures reveals only empty rock. They vanish silently into the shadowed expanse, leaving behind a faint impression of motion and presence. The sighting of these figures is never accompanied by sound. No footsteps echo across the rock, no wind carries movement. They exist visually, briefly, as if walking in a layer of memory embedded in the lava itself. The experience leaves an impression of awe, and a subtle unease, as though the crater contains layers of time beyond the visible moment. At night, soft chanting is sometimes heard drifting across the crater. The voices are distant, low, almost melodic, rising and falling in a rhythm that seems attuned to the expanse itself. There is no visible source, no movement along the rim, no light that would indicate human presence. The chanting is intermittent, appearing in the quietest moments, lingering just long enough to be heard, then fading into the still air. The effect of these sounds is heightened by the natural acoustics of the crater. Sound carries differently across lava and stone, bouncing in ways that are unpredictable and subtle. Even so, the chanting feels deliberate, as though it is intended to be heard by those who walk the rim or cross the floor. The experience is immersive, drawing attention outward toward the crater while simultaneously focusing awareness on the presence of the listener. Visitors also notice the landscape responding in small ways. Temperature shifts along the rim, the faint rustle of wind through cracks, and the subtle movement of shadows. All contribute to a heightened sense of awareness. Each sensory detail reinforces the perception that the crater is not merely a static formation, but a space alive with memory, motion, and quiet energy. The geology of the site provides natural explanations for some phenomena. Lava cools unevenly, creating pockets that hold temperature differently. Fissures and ridges create optical illusions, allowing distant shapes to appear transient and human-like. Wind and the unique acoustics of the bowl carry sound unexpectedly. Yet these factors cannot fully account for the consistency of reports, sudden temperature changes, figures crossing impossible paths, and chanting without source. Remaining on the crater for extended periods amplifies these impressions. The silence deepens. Shadows move with the changing light. The subtle temperature shifts persist, and the feeling of presence grows more pronounced. Time feels altered, measured by the rhythm of wind, light, and distant echoes, rather than by a clock or the sun alone. Leaving the crater brings relief, yet memory lingers. The sudden cold along the rim, the figures walking across hardened lava, and the faint chanting all remain vivid in recollection. Visitors often report that the experience heightens awareness of their surroundings and leaves an enduring impression of the crater's scale, history, and subtle vitality. With diaresis, Lauia Iki crater is more than a geological formation. It is a space where the power of nature, history, and perception converge. The hardened lava carries echoes of its molten past. The rim responds to wind, light, and movement. Figures and sounds appear and vanish, hinting at layers of memory embedded in rock and air. For those who walk its edges at sunrise, dusk, or night, the crater offers an experience of immersion and attention. Every step, every glance, every shift in temperature reminds visitors that this landscape is alive in ways that cannot be fully measured. The past and present coexist here, layered in sound, shadow, and stone. With diaresis Blauia Iki crater remains dramatic, mysterious, and profoundly alive. Visitors leave with impressions that endure, aware that they have walked among lava shaped by fire, history, and subtle unseen forces. The experience is quiet, immersive, and unforgettable, a reminder that the earth itself can hold memory, presence, and wonder in every crevice and along every rim. Ueaea rises from the eastern lava fields of Hawaii's Big Island like a monument forged in fire. The vent shaped much of the surrounding landscape over decades, sending rivers of molten rock that cooled into jagged ridges and blackened plains. Even now, the terrain feels alive, scarred and shifting, its presence dominating the horizon. Visitors approach along hardened lava flows, aware that every step carries them across land both ancient and recent, sculpted by heat, pressure, and time. By day, Ueaea appears barren yet awe-inspiring. The jagged lava fields stretch for miles, fractured rock catching sunlight in sharp glints. Steam rises intermittently from fissures, carrying the scent of sulfur and warmed earth. The wind moves freely across the ridges, carrying sound with odd clarity, echoing footsteps, and amplifying distant rumbles that come from the earth itself. Echoing footsteps and amplifying distant rumbles that come from the earth itself. Hikers and visitors often report sudden tremors without any recorded volcanic activity. The ground beneath their feet shivers briefly, sometimes rhythmically, sometimes in an isolated pulse. There is no warning, no seismic alert, and no visible cause. The tremors are fleeting but undeniable, leaving a sensation of unsteady footing that lingers even after movement ceases. It is as if the earth beneath is aware of every step taken upon it, shifting in recognition of presence. As night falls, Ueaea takes on a new and more unsettling character. Darkness deepens the jagged textures of cooled lava. And the horizon fades into a void where land and sky meet. The wind carries differently in the absence of daylight, moving through fissures and gaps in the rock to create strange harmonics. Glowing lights sometimes appear along the vent. They rise and fall within the fissures, flickering red, orange, and amber. Observers describe the lights coalescing into shapes that resemble humanoid forms. The figures are subtle at first, faint outlines shimmering against the molten glow. They appear to move deliberately, pacing or standing still, yet they never stray far from the vents. Those who encounter the glowing shapes often describe them as simultaneously mesmerizing and unnerving. The figures do not communicate, do not gesture, and do not follow directly. Yet the impression of observation is unmistakable. The shapes respond to proximity, fading slightly when approached and becoming more distinct when viewed from a distance. Their presence conveys awareness, a silent assertion that the land itself is not empty. Many hikers choose to avoid descending the vent after sunset. The combination of shifting ground, glowing figures, and the eerie hum of wine through the fissures creates an atmosphere of unease that feels intentional rather than coincidental. Some report feeling a presence following them along the ridges, an impression of company moving alongside without visible form. The sensation is persistent, subtle but firm, compelling visitors to maintain distance and hurry along the paths. The effect of Ueaea at night is cumulative. Tremors, glowing forms, shifting shadows, and wind-borne sounds combine to heighten perception. Even ordinary movement feels amplified. The landscape seems to watch, guiding attention along jagged paths and fissured lava flows. Every footstep is accompanied by the awareness that the land has memory and intent. A consciousness built from centuries of fire and movement. The geology of the vent enhances these phenomena. Fissures carry sound unusually well, echoing footsteps and distant voices in ways that appear directional. Steam rising from vents bends light and heat, creating illusions of depth and movement. The interplay of cooled rock, residual heat, and uneven terrain makes perception unreliable, heightening the impression that shapes and tremors are alive with intent. Visitors who remain long enough often feel the presence most acutely near the main vent. The humanoid lights appear more frequently here, pacing along fissures and standing at edges that drop into darkened lava tubes. The tremors are more pronounced, the ground subtly vibrating beneath feet. Wind moves sharply, carrying a faint, low-frequency hum that resonates through the chest and amplifies the sensation of being observed. The experience is not threatening in a conventional sense. There is no violence, no pursuit, no direct interaction. Yet the combination of sensory effects of the visual, the auditory, the tactilia creates tension. Time stretches as visitors navigate the ridges. Moments of silence feel extended, and the perception of distance becomes distorted. Each decision, each step, feels significant, as though the vent itself is guiding attention. By morning, Pueaea appears tranquil once more. Sunlight illuminates jagged lava formations, flickering figures vanish entirely. And the tremors subside. The wind carries only natural sounds. Rustling sparse vegetation and distant birds. The vent appears dormant. A familiar landmark in the open lava fields. Yet the memory of glowing shapes persists. Sudden tremors and the sense of presence. Echoing in the minds of those who experienced it. Pueaea remains a monument to the raw power of the Big Island. Its vent shaped vast stretches of eastern lava fields, creating terrain that is at once breathtaking and unsettling. The glowing lights, tremors, and haunting sensations serve as reminders that the land retains memory, awareness, and perhaps even consciousness. Those who walk its ridges at night are witnesses to a landscape alive with history, energy, and quiet mystery. A place where fire and stone continue to assert their presence long after lava has cooled. The vent continues to breathe beneath the surface. Fissures may shift, tremors may pulse. And the glow of hidden heat may rise again. Pueaea does not reveal all at once. It offers a glimpse of its power and awareness, demanding respect and attention from all who traverse its jagged paths. The vent, like the island itself, remains both awe-inspiring and enigmatic. A living testament to the forces that shape the land and continue to inhabit it. Poli Spring State Recreation Area on Maui is perched among dense forests and volcanic ridges, a place where the land feels removed from the rhythm of modern life. By day, the park is serene, with trails winding through thick stands of trees and along ridges that overlook valleys blanketed in green. Birds call across the canopy. The wind moves gently through the branches, and the scent of damp earth and native flora fills the air. Even in daylight, the landscape has a sense of isolation. Trails disappear into the forest quickly. And the ridges frame the land in ways that emphasize separation. As though the world beyond has faded away. Visitors notice that each step carries weight. The quiet magnifying the smallest sounds. As evening approaches, the environment begins to shift. Light fades rapidly through the dense foliage, leaving the forest darker and more intimate. Shapes and textures that were familiar in the sun become mysterious in shadow. At night, Poli Spring takes on a markedly different character. Visitors have reported hearing voices, soft and distant, rising from between the trees. Whispers echo along trails, sometimes indistinct, sometimes seemingly calling names. The sounds do not appear to come from any one place. They drift across the forest, layered and unpredictable, making it impossible to determine a source. Alongside the whispers, distant laughter can sometimes be heard. It is low and ephemeral, fading before it can be traced. The effect is subtle, not threatening, yet it creates an awareness that the park is more than empty space. The auditory experience makes hikers pause, listening intently for patterns or signs, yet finding only the continuation of natural forest sounds intertwined with these unexplained noises. Figures are also reported among the trees. Observers catch glimpses of human-shaped forms moving between trunks and underbrush. They appear briefly, sometimes visible for only a moment, and vanish before anyone can approach. These figures are never aggressive, never fully defined, but they leave the impression that somania or somthinga is present in the shadows. Their movements are deliberate, purposeful, yet fleeting, reinforcing the sense that the forest itself is alive and aware of human presence. The fog that sometimes drifts through the park adds another layer of mystery. Rolls across trails and ridges silently, dense enough to obscure vision yet thin enough to allow movement through it. Within the fog, the air grows inexplicably cold, even on nights when the surrounding environment remains warm. The chill is not harsh, but it is noticeable, carrying with it an intangible weight, a reminder of the forest's presence and history. These phenomena do not feel random. The combination of sound, shadow, and cold creates an immersive sense of attention. The forest seems responsive, aware of the movements of those walking its trails. Silence and stillness are amplified, making even small noises, leaves crunching, branches swaying, feel significant, part of a larger, unseen rhythm. The isolation of the area contributes to the intensity of these experiences. Trails are long, visibility is limited, and the topography of ridges and valleys shapes both sound and perception. Visitors moving along narrow paths often notice the way echoes shift and dissipate, how footsteps seem amplified in some areas and absorbed in others. This natural acoustics creates an interplay between environment and perception, reinforcing the feeling that the forest is alive. Many who spend time in Poli Spring after dark describe a layered awareness. Each whisper, each brief glimpse of a figure, each touch of cold fog adds to a cumulative sense that the forest is populated not only by wildlife but by memory, presence, and energy that has accumulated over decades. The park feels like a space where past activity, cultural significance, and natural rhythm converge. Walking through the area at night requires heightened attention. The forest demands respect, not through fear, but through awareness. Every movement matters. Every step carries weight. Visitors note that pausing in one spot can heighten the perception of presence, while movement can disperse it momentarily. By morning, light restores familiarity. Light restores familiarity. The fog lifts, and the forest resumes its daytime rhythm. Trails are visible again. The cold dissipates. The whispers and laughter are gone, leaving only memory. Leaving only memory and the natural sounds of birds, wind, and rustling leaves. The park appears ordinary, serene, and entirely human in scale. Yet those who have walked the trails at night carry the impressions with them. The whispers calling across ridges. The fleeting figures among trees. And the inexplicable cold within the fog remain in memory, shaping the perception of the park long after leaving. These experiences remind visitors that Poli Spring is more than a landscape. It is a living environment, layered with history, energy, and an awareness that persists in shadow. Poli Spring State Recreation Area remains a place of quiet majesty and subtle mystery. Its dense forests and volcanic ridges are home to both natural beauty and unexplained presence. By day, it offers serenity and exploration. By night, it reveals depth, responsiveness, and the lingering sense that the forest is alive, attentive, and full of stories that only the darkness can reveal. With Diaresis Hollow State Park rests along the western coast of Hawaii's Big Island, where black sand beaches meet volcanic cliffs and the ocean stretches into the horizon. By day, the landscape is striking, shaped by hardened lava flows, smooth black sands, and the rhythmic motion of waves. The sun glints off the water, casting a brilliant contrast against the dark coastline. Visitors often pause to take in the scenery, feeling the weight of the ancient lava and the stillness of the area, a sense of timelessness that permeates the land. The park is quiet, with few structures to interrupt the view. Trails follow the contours of volcanic rock, leading to tide pools and lava fields. The combination of land and water, rock and sand, creates an environment that feels isolated yet vibrant with natural energy. During the day, the sounds are simple, waves crashing, seabirds calling, and wind moving across the lava ridges. The space feels grounded and alive, yet safe, a place of contemplation and natural beauty. As the sun sets, the landscape transforms. Shadows lengthen across the black sand, stretching from jagged lava cliffs and scattered rock formations. The ocean darkens, reflecting the dimming sky in shifting patterns of silver and deep blue. Colors fade, and the familiar daytime features of the terrain take on a new, more mysterious quality. The park becomes quieter, yet the silence feels different, heavier, as if charged with unseen presence. Visitors who remain after dark often report seeing shadows moving near the lava cliffs. These shapes appear for moments at a time, shifting along edges and folds in the terrain. They are seldom fully defined, more impressions of motion than solid forms, yet they carry the weight of observation. Approaching the cliffs does not clarify the source. The shadows vanish or merge with the darkness, leaving only the rocky silhouette and the faint echo of movement. The ocean contributes to the feeling of otherworldliness. Many visitors report hearing voices carried on the waves, faint and indistinct at first, then forming sounds that resemble names. The voices are low and melodic, blending with the rhythm of surf and wind. They are not threatening, but they create a sense of attention, as though the water itself is observing those who walk the shoreline. Walking along the black sand beach, the effect is profound. Each step produces a contrast between the solid ground and the dynamic environment. The combination of moving shadows, unseen figures, and voices rising from the ocean creates a heightened sense of awareness. The land and water seem to participate in observation, reinforcing the feeling of being watched without aggression. Some visitors report feeling eyes upon them from both land and water. The sensation is difficult to describe. It is not accompanied by sight or sound, yet it is unmistakable. Every movement is felt, every glance perceived. The cliffs seem to lean slightly toward the beach. The lava ridges cast deep, moving shadows, and the waves shift rhythmically, as if marking attention. These sensations intensify near the tide pools and the edges of lava flows. Small pools of water reflect the night sky, creating illusions of depth and movement. Shadows dance across the rocks, sometimes extending from the observer's own form, other times appearing independently. The combination of reflection, shadow, and silence reinforces the sense that the environment is alive and aware. Temperature and wind contribute as well. Sudden gusts carry salt and cool air across the skin, punctuating the quiet with tactile presence. Moments of chill arrive without warning, leaving the observer startled and attentive. The effect is subtle but cumulative, layering perception and expectation together in a heightened awareness of place. Even for those who do not perceive shadows or hear voices, the environment creates a powerful emotional impact. The isolation, the dark sands, the motion of the waves, and the looming cliffs combine to produce an intense sense of place. The park feels ancient, shaped by eruptions, tides, and centuries of natural change. Visitors cannot escape the impression that the land and sea hold memory. The combination of land, water, and air seems to record activity, recalling movement and presence even when no one is near. Figures, shadows, and voices may be manifestations of memory, echoes of past visitors, or remnants of the lava flow's ancient energy. The effect is immersive, subtle, and undeniable to those attuned to the environment at night. By morning, with diuresis Hollow State Park returns to its daytime character. Sunlight warms the lava, revealing textures and contours previously hidden. The black sand gleams. Tide pools shimmer. The ocean appears calm and inviting. Shadows retreat. Voices, if they were heard, are gone. The park resumes its serene and natural state. Yet for those who have experienced the park at night, the memory remains. The moving shadows along cliffs. The voices in the waves. The sense of unseen Isa. All leave a lasting impression. With diuresis Hollow State Park continues to exist as a landscape of contrast. Where day brings calm and beauty, and night brings mystery, presence, and awareness that the land and sea are alive in ways beyond sight. Visitors depart carrying a subtle but profound connection to the place. The volcanic black sands, the cliffs, and the restless ocean remind them that with diuresis Hollow is more than a beach or trail. It is a space where memory, observation, and natural energy converge. It is a place where land and water watch, where the night carries whispers, and where presence lingers long after dawn returns the park to sunlight. Waimea Canyon State Park on Kauai stretches across the landscape like a living painting, a dramatic expanse of red and green carved by rivers and time. By day, it is breathtaking, a place where cliffs drop sharply, valleys stretch endlessly, and the air is scented with earth, foliage, and the ocean carried on the wind. Hikers move along marked trails, stopping to take in the vistas, the waterfall-fed streams, and the sheer scale of the canyon. Every angle seems to capture a new dimension, a new depth, a new layer of the island's volcanic history. The canyon feels alive even in daylight. Light changes rapidly across the ridges and valleys, highlighting red soil and green vegetation in sharp contrast. The trails are well trodden, yet the scale of the canyon overwhelms, reminding visitors that this is a land shaped over millennia by water, lava, and erosion. As evening approaches, the canyon begins to transform. Shadows stretch across cliffs, steep ridges darken, and the temperature cools rapidly. The air grows denser, filled with the sound of rustling leaves and the faint echo of distant waterfalls. The canyon that seemed open and inviting by day takes on a sense of scale that feels almost intimidating. The wind carries far, bending sound in ways that can make ordinary noises seem strange and amplified. Hikers at dusk sometimes report seeing figures walking along ridges. The forms appear just beyond the trail, moving with a surety and balance that seems impossible given the steepness of the cliffs. They traverse narrow rock lines and sharp slopes without faltering, stepping where no path is visible. Observers describe the figures as fleeting, often disappearing when approached directly, leaving only the wind and the sound of distant rocks shifting beneath their imagined weight. The wind plays a central role in the canyon's nocturnal presence. It whistles through the valleys, rising and falling unpredictably, carrying voices that seem to echo with unusual clarity. Words are often indistinct, fragments of song or speech shaped by the contours of cliffs and ridges. It is not forceful, yet unmistakable. A weight in the chest, a tug at the feet, a gentle insistence to move closer to the cliffs without intending to. The sensation is accompanied by heightened awareness, a sense that the space itself is aware of their presence. Many describe pausing instinctively, gripping a rock or railing, and feeling both awe and caution in equal measure. The canyon seems to hold layers of memory. Erosion, water, volcanic activity, and human passage are all embedded within its depths. Trails follow ancient ridges, and some areas remain untouched, carrying the quiet weight of centuries. The figures, the voices, and the pull all seem to emerge from the land itself, as though the canyon remembers what has crossed its ridges and valleys. Movement, sound, and sensation intertwine at night. The figures on ridges appear briefly and vanish. The whistling wind carries fragments of voices that rise and fall unpredictably. The invisible pull at the edges reminds hikers of the scale and danger of the space. All elements combine to create a heightened awareness, a sense that the canyon is alive in ways beyond ordinary perception. The canyon's energy is subtle but undeniable. There is no aggression, no threat. The presence of figures and voices is gentle, observing, perhaps residual rather than intentional. Visitors often describe a mixture of wonder and unease, a recognition that the canyon is more than rock and soil. It is a space that holds time, movement, and history in layers that become perceptible under certain conditions. Those who explore after dark learn to move carefully. Every step on stone or trail is measured. Every glance at shadowed ridges draws attention to unseen spaces. Even the sound of the wind becomes part of navigation, carrying cues that might warn, guide, or simply impress awareness of the canyon's vastness. The experience often leaves a lasting impression. Footsteps echo in memory. Voices carried by wind linger after leaving the park. The sense of pull at cliff edges remains in thought and in body awareness. The canyon's presence follows hikers into the night and sometimes into dreams, a reminder of its enduring scale and subtle vitality. By morning, Waimea Canyon appears calm once more. Trails are safe and familiar again. The ridges and valleys seem ordinary, yet those who remained after dark know the land differently. It is still majestic, still beautiful, but also restless, carrying echoes of movement, sound, and presence that emerge only when attention is focused and the night is deep. Waimea Canyon State Park offers both wonder and caution. Its beauty is unmatched, its vistas vast, and its history embedded in every ridge and valley. At night, figures may appear on steep ridges. Whistling winds may carry voices from nowhere. Invisible forces may tug gently at those who explore too close to the edge. The canyon invites respect, awareness, and reflection, reminding visitors that even in the most serene landscapes, the land itself may hold secrets that emerge only when the world grows quiet and darkness settles. Hikers leave the park carrying both images and impressions. The canyon's colors, textures, and shapes remain vivid. The memory of unseen figures, echoing voices, and subtle tugs persists. Waimea Canyon continues to breathe, to watch, and to hold energy. A living landscape that teaches patience, reverence, and the quiet awareness that some places are larger and more alive than they first appear. Lava Tree State Monument on the Big Island is a place where fire and time have sculpted the land into a landscape unlike any other. Hardened lava flows surround the remnants of ancient trees, their shapes preserved as molds in blackened rock. The trunks rise like skeletal silhouettes, contorted and hollowed, their forms ghostly against the vibrant greenery that occasionally grows among them. Visitors walking among these lava molds are immediately struck by their strangeness, as if the trees are caught between life and permanence, suspended in an eerie stillness. Suspended in an eerie stillness. During the day, the monument is surreal but serene. Sunlight reflects off the shiny black surfaces of the cooled lava, casting long shadows across the ground. Each tree mold is a monument to a moment frozen in time. A memory of fire that once swept through the forest. Walking through the paths, visitors notice how some molds lean precariously. Others curve into unnatural angles. And every surface carries the rough, textured imprint of bark from centuries past. The landscape feels quiet, yet charged, alive with the residual energy of its violent past. As evening approaches, the shadows grow longer and deeper. The air cools quickly as the sun sinks. And the lava surfaces retain the memory of heat even as the temperature drops. In these hours, the monument begins to feel less like a preserved forest and more like a living space. One that responds to presence and movement. Every step over the uneven rock creates echoes that stretch along the hardened flows, amplifying the sense of isolation and depth. After sunset, visitors often report movement among the tree molds. Figures appear faintly in the gaps between trunks, crouched or kneeling as if in contemplation or ritual. They do not walk or speak, but their presence is unmistakable. Shadows shift around them, and the forms seem aware of those observing, remaining still until approached. As visitors draw nearer, the figures vanish silently, leaving only the shapes of lava and the hollowed trunks behind. The disappearing figures are never threatening. They move subtly, appearing and fading with the same natural rhythm that guides the movement of shadows through the forest. Their presence is fleeting yet deliberate, creating a sense of connection across time, as if the land remembers those who once inhabited it or the forces that shaped it. The hollowed lava trunks serve as frames for these ephemeral moments, their dark openings suggesting eyes, voids, or doors into another reality. Whispers are another phenomenon visitors report at Lava Tree State Monument. They seem to emanate from inside the hollow molds, soft and distant, carrying unintelligible words or tones. The whispers rise and fall with the wind, drifting across the paths and along the lava flows. They do not form coherent sentences, yet their cadence and resonance suggest communication or presence. Standing near a mold, one might hear the sound as though it were coming from deep within, vibrating through the rock itself. The effect of these sounds is amplified by the natural acoustics of the lava forest. Hollow trunks act as resonators, carrying faint noise across unexpected distances. A soft exhale, a shifting rock, or a small movement of leaves can seem magnified, becoming indistinguishable from the whispered voices. Yet those who experience it report a sensation of intentionality, as though the whispers are aware of the listener and the space they occupy. As though the whispers are aware of the listener and the space they occupy. Walking through the monument at night enhances the immersive effect. The black lava absorbs light, creating deep shadows that obscure depth and distance. The silhouettes of the tree molds take on exaggerated forms, suggesting movement or posture where none exists. The air feels cooler and more tactile, the ground uneven, the paths winding through a terrain that is both familiar and alien. The visitor becomes part of the landscape, attuned to subtle shifts in sound, shadow, and perception. Even for those who have not visited the monument at night, reports are consistent. Figures crouching or kneeling. Whispers carried through hollow molds. A sense of presence that lingers in the air. The combination of visual, auditory, and sensory input creates an experience that is immersive and memorable. Connecting past fire, time, and human perception in a unique way. Remaining within the lava forest for extended periods intensifies the effect. Movement is more noticeable, whispers become sharper, and the landscape feels densely populated by energy and memory. The monument feels alive without changing physically, a space where the past and present coexist. Each step and glance carries weight, and visitors find themselves observing in a heightened state of awareness. Attuned to phenomena that might otherwise go unnoticed. Leaving the monument brings relief, yet the impression persists. The ghostly shapes of trees, the fleeting crouched figures, and the faint whispers remain vivid in memory. Visitors carry a sense of having walked among layers of history, fire, and subtle presence. The landscape feels as if it is still alive with echoes, retaining memory in rock and void, shadow and hollow. Lava Tree State Monument is a space where natural history and human perception converge. Figures that appear and vanish, whispers that drift from hollowed trunks. And the strange shifting of shadow and temperature combine to create a place both beautiful and mysterious. For those who visit, the monument offers an opportunity to witness the power of fire. The persistence of memory, and the subtle presence that lingers in hardened lava. It is a place where the extraordinary meets the natural, where every shape, sound, and movement invites observation and reflection. And where the echoes of the past remain tangible long after visitors have departed. Kalaupapa National Historical Park on the island of Molokai sits along volcanic cliffs that plunge dramatically into the Pacific Ocean. The settlement was once a place for those afflicted with leprosy, chosen for its isolation and inaccessibility. Today, the park preserves the history of the people who lived, suffered, and persevered here. Even in its quiet state, the land carries a weight that cannot be ignored, a presence shaped by decades of human experience and sorrow. Visitors approaching Kalaupapa notice the cliffs first. They rise sharply from the ocean, jagged and raw, etched with lava flows and scarred by time. The paths that lead down to the settlement wind carefully along steep inclines, exposing breathtaking views of valleys and coves. The air feels different here, thick and heavy, carrying the scent of salt and earth. Even before entering the settlement, there is a sense that the land remembers. Within the park, people report seeing faint figures along the cliff edges. They are shadowed and indistinct, yet they move with purpose. Sometimes they appear standing, gazing outward, as if watching the ocean. Other times they seem to pace slowly along narrow ridges or steps, their forms fleeting and delicate. Approaching these figures often results in nothing being found. The cliffs remain empty, yet the impression of presence lingers. The experience is intensified by sound. Carried gently by the wind. Each echo evokes the memory of lives lived in isolation. Moments of both joy and sorrow preserved in the atmosphere. The combination of figures and echoes creates an immersive sense of the past. The simple structures of wood and stone, the small courtyards, and narrow walkways all seem imbued with the presence of those who inhabited them. Shadows shift across walls, sunlight falls unevenly, and the air itself feels charged, as if carrying the weight of countless unspoken stories. Those who linger often describe a heaviness in the air. The sensation is subtle at first, a gentle pressure, then more pronounced as attention focuses on the cliffs or valleys. It is not threatening, but it is persistent, grounding visitors in the reality of the lives that existed here. Breathing becomes more deliberate, steps more measured, and the awareness of surroundings sharper. The land asserts its history without aggression, a reminder that memory is alive in more than just objects. The land asserts its history without aggression, a reminder that memory is alive in more than just objects. The cliffs themselves contribute to the atmosphere. Wind moves unpredictably along their faces, sometimes falling still, sometimes rushing suddenly. Carrying echoes across the settlement. The paths wind along narrow edges. And distant sounds of surf hitting the rocks below amplify, creating an auditory tapestry that seems both natural and haunted. Figures on the ridges appear and disappear with the wind and light, blending into the landscape yet leaving an undeniable impression. Walking near the edge, visitors often report a sense of being watched. It is not a presence in the conventional sense, but the weight of memory pressed into the terrain. Every footprint on the paths, every gust of wind, every cry of seabirds seems to carry significance. The cliffs, valleys, and settlement together create an environment where perception is heightened and ordinary movement feels meaningful. The history of Kalaupapa reinforces the intensity of the experience. The settlement housed thousands of people over the decades, individuals separated from the rest of society by fear, stigma, and illness. Their daily lives involved survival, resilience, and the building of community under extreme conditions. Those who remain in memory now appear in the wind, in shadows, and in echoes, not as ghosts in a malevolent sense, but as remnants of perseverance, sorrow, and endurance. Visitors walking through the area often pause at small monuments, markers, or surviving structures. The faint figures along the cliffs seem particularly attentive to these spots, lingering in alignment with places that hold significance. Whispers, laughter, and weeping continue to drift across the valleys, creating the impression that the settlement is alive with remembrance. The land itself conveys the stories, teaching through presence and sensation rather than words. Even brief visits leave a lasting impression. The cliffs, the settlement, the soundscape, and the faint figures all combine to create an atmosphere that is at once solemn, immersive, and respectful. Visitors feel the weight of human experience concentrated in space, and the echoes of emotion remain long after departure. The air retains memory. The cliffs hold witness. The valleys carry voice. By daylight, the park appears serene. Sunlight illuminates lava-scarred cliffs, the ocean glimmers far below. And pathways wind safely through the settlement. The figures along the cliffs are less distinct in bright light. The echoes soften into distant noise, almost ordinary. Yet those who have walked the land at quiet hours know the truth. Kalaupapa is never truly empty. It holds memory, attention, and presence in every rock, every shadow, and every gust of wind. Sanctuary and sorrow coexist in the park. The cliffs watch. The valleys remember. The settlement, though quiet, continues to speak through atmosphere, figures, and echoes. Visitors depart carrying awareness of a place shaped by history, resilience, and loss. A space where the past lingers in subtle, profound ways, reminding all who enter that some lands are forever marked by those who walked before. Mauna Kea rises from the Big Island as a sacred and isolated peak. Its summit stretching above clouds and sky. By day, the mountain is breathtaking. Lava flows and cinder paths sweep across its slopes. Snow may dust the higher ridges. And the air is thin, crisp, and clear. Visitors walking the trails feel both the vastness of the island below and the weight of centuries of spiritual reverence carried in this place. Even during daylight, there is a subtle intensity. The land seems aware of every step taken upon it. Each breath feels sharper, every movement deliberate. The summit is not only high in altitude but elevated in significance. The mountain has long been regarded as sacred by native Hawaiians, a place where the earthly and the divine intersect. As the sun dips below the horizon, the character of Mauna Kea transforms. Shadows lengthen across cinder and rock. Temperatures drop rapidly. The thin air carries a quiet that feels heavier than expected. Every sound echoes clearly, from the faint crunch of footsteps on volcanic gravel to the distant hiss of shifting wind. Visitors report seeing shadowy figures crossing cinder paths at night. These forms are fleeting, appearing briefly against the darkened landscape before disappearing into shadow. They move with purpose, deliberate steps that suggest direction and intent. Some figures appear humanoid, tall and upright, walking alone or in small groups. They do not respond to observation and vanish when approached, leaving only the impression that the mountain itself is inhabited. Alongside the shadowy figures, strange lights appear near telescope facilities. These lights are soft and sometimes flicker, moving along edges of structures or hovering briefly over the summit, before vanishing, leaving a lingering sense of curiosity and awe. Sudden gusts of cold wind often accompany these phenomena. The air can chill abruptly, brushing against skin with intensity that has no obvious source. The gusts move in patterns that feel almost directed, arriving and receding with the presence of figures or lights. Visitors describe the sensation as a reminder that the summit is not merely a landscape, but a living environment with a subtle awareness of those moving through it. The combination of shadow, light, and wind creates an immersive experience. The mountain feels alive, carrying energy from centuries of spiritual significance. Each cinder path, rock formation, and ridge seems charged with presence. The thin air magnifies perception, making small movements and subtle sounds feel meaningful. The summit's history enhances this atmosphere. Mauna Kea has long been a place of ceremony, worship, and observation. Generations of Hawaiians have traversed these slopes with reverence. And their presence has left an enduring imprint. Modern observatories coexist with this legacy. Yet the land retains an energy that predates human instruments. Even without direct observation, the mountain communicates a sense of history and attention. Hikers describe a quiet tension, a feeling that movement is observed and recorded. The shadowy figures and lights may be echoes of past activity, remnants of rituals, or manifestations of the spiritual significance long attributed to the summit. They are subtle, brief, and impossible to capture fully, yet their presence shapes perception. Standing at the summit at night heightens awareness. Each step on volcanic gravel feels amplified. The cold air presses against skin. The horizon stretches endlessly. A canvas of dark sky and distant city lights far below. Shadows lengthen unnaturally. Steam vents from residual geothermal activity hiss intermittently. The environment becomes a symphony of sound, movement, and energy, blending natural forces with the intangible. The experience is not frightening, but it is profoundly humbling. Visitors sense both the vastness of the landscape and the persistence of spiritual energy. The mountain feels patient and eternal, observing quietly, while allowing glimpses of movement that defy explanation. Time seems to slow, and each breath and step becomes conscious, measured against the enduring presence of the summit. By dawn, sunlight returns warmth and clarity to Mauna Kea. Shadows shrink. The thin air feels less intense. The figures, lights, and sudden gusts disappear, leaving the summit calm and silent once more. The peak looks unremarkable, majestic only in natural beauty. And the cinder paths appear empty. To a visitor arriving in daylight, the mountain seems peaceful, solid and entirely natural. The visitor is left with a sense of unease. Yet those who have spent the night carry the memory of something greater. They remember fleeting figures, unexplained lights, and the cold brush of wind that suggested the summit was aware and responsive. They recall the sense of energy lingering in rocks and ridges, and the subtle weight of centuries of devotion and spiritual presence. Mauna Kea summit is more than the highest point on the Big Island. It is a landscape alive with history, culture, and a persistent awareness. And a persistent awareness that touches those who linger in darkness. The cinder paths, telescopes, and volcanic ridges all exist alongside the intangible presence. A reminder that sacred spaces endure, witness, and observe. Visitors leave the summit with both awe and reverence. By day, they see natural majesty. By night, they experience connection, awareness, and the sense that Mauna Kea is alive, watching, and carrying energy far beyond what is visible to the human eye. The mountain is eternal, a witness to time, to history, and to the people who come seeking both adventure and understanding. Pu'uhinai rises alone among the forests of Maui, a solitary volcanic hill that dominates the surrounding landscape. From a distance, its slopes appear gentle, covered with native shrubs and scattered lava rocks, yet as hikers approach, the contours reveal sharp ridges, steep drops, and deep fissures carved by centuries of volcanic activity. The air is filled with the scent of earth and vegetation, and the faint rustle of leaves accompanies each step along winding trails. By day, the hill feels remote but manageable, a place of exploration and natural beauty. As afternoon fades into evening, the mood of Pu'uhinai begins to shift. The wind carries unfamiliar sounds, moving through the trees and over rocks, giving the impression that the landscape itself is attentive. The solitude of the hill grows heavier as the sun disappears behind distant peaks, leaving the volcanic slopes in partial darkness. Hikers who remain after dusk report seeing shapes along the ridges. They appear briefly, often silhouetted against the darkening sky or the fading light on distant lava flows. They shift slowly, sometimes moving along the trail or ridge line. Approaching these shapes reveals nothing. They vanish as if dissolving into the landscape, leaving no trace of presence. The effect is both startling and subtle, creating the impression that the hill itself is inhabited by unseen watchers. Along the fissures and cracks in the lava, faint chanting is sometimes heard. The sound rises softly, almost imperceptibly at first, echoing through the stone and vegetation. The sound resembles rhythmic tones, repeated syllables carried by the wind, resonant and ancient. There is no visible source, no group of people, no instruments. The chanting seems to emerge from the cracks themselves, as if the hill holds memory and expression of its own. The ground underfoot feels unusually alive. Small tremors, uneven vibrations, or the subtle shifting of loose rocks can be sensed with each step. The combination of sound, movement, and perception creates an immersive experience, heightening awareness of every sensation. Heightening awareness of every sensation. The interplay of shadows, shapes, and chanting produces a layered atmosphere. Light fades quickly at Pu Hinai's summit, making familiar trails unfamiliar. Lava ridges distort perspective, and the forest edges appear to move in subtle ways. Hikers often pause, looking for sources, and find only empty slopes, solid rock, and the faint impression of movement just beyond their vision. The feeling of being watched is a common theme. It is not threatening, yet persistent. Figures may appear near the summit or along distant ridges, and while unseen directly, their presence is implied through shadows, vibrations, and the alignment of natural forms. The effect is immersive, altering perception of space and distance. Sound plays a central role in the experience. The chanting echoes through fissures, while wind over lava flows produces low hums and whistles. Leaves rustle along the forest edge, and small animals move quietly in the underbrush. All of these combine to create a sense of motion, presence, and activity, even when the hill appears empty. Each of these auditory cues contributes to the impression that Pu Hinai is attentive and alive. Even without visible shapes or chanting, the summit carries a palpable energy. Steps are measured more carefully, every movement is felt, and attention to detail is heightened. The perception of alive ground is strongest near fissures and ridges, where the combination of rock, vibration, and echo is most pronounced. The environment feels responsive, subtly interacting with those who traverse it. Hikers report an altered sense of time. Minutes stretch and compress unpredictably. Shadows shift in ways that defy expectation. Small movements are amplified in awareness. The experience is immersive, blending perception of sound, sight, and tactile feedback to create a deep connection to the landscape. The effect does not tend toward fear but reverence. The hill's energy, combined with shadows and chanting, produces a mix of awe and caution. Visitors feel a heightened awareness of place, aware of both their own presence and the implied presence of others, whether human or not. By morning, the summit returns to a familiar state. Sunlight warms the lava, shadows retreat, and the forest regains its daytime clarity. Shapes vanish completely, chanting ceases, and the energy of the ground feels stable and calm. The impression of the night lingers, however, leaving hikers with a memory of motion, sound, and awareness that persists long after descent. Pu Hinai continues to stand as a solitary volcanic feature, its slopes and ridges shaped over centuries of lava flows and natural forces. By day, it offers exploration and solitude. By night, it becomes a landscape of subtle presence, responsive and layered, where shadows move, chanting rises from fissures, and the ground itself feels alive. For those who traverse it after dark, Pu Hinai is unforgettable. Every shadow, every vibration, every faint sound contributes to a sense of the hill as alive and attentive. It is a place where the land itself seems to remember, where energy lingers in stone and soil, and where visitors are never entirely alone. The volcanic hill is at once a natural wonder and a space of subtle mystery. Enduring, patient, and alive under the Hawaiian night sky. Waimanu Valley on the Big Island of Hawaii stretches deep into the rugged coastline, a remote expanse carved over centuries by lava flows, rivers, and erosion. By day, it is breathtaking, a place where waterfalls tumble into turquoise pools, dense forests cling to steep slopes, and cliffs rise sharply on either side. The valley feels isolated from the world, a natural cathedral shaped by fire and water, where every step on the uneven ground reminds visitors of the immense forces that formed it. The landscape is alive with subtle motion. Rivers carve paths through blackened lava rock, their waters flowing relentlessly toward the ocean. Birds flit between trees, leaves rustle with the wind, and the smell of wet earth and vegetation fills the air. Sunlight filters through mist created by cascading waterfalls, casting the valley in shifting tones of green, gold, and silver. For hikers and explorers, each moment is a combination of beauty, isolation, and respect for the raw power of nature. As evening approaches, Waimanu Valley begins to change. Shadows lengthen across the slopes, stretching along riverbeds and cliffs. The temperature drops rapidly, and the air grows damp from rising evening mist. Sounds carry farther in the narrowing valley, and every movement, whether from wind or falling leaves, is amplified. The familiar landscape takes on a new weight, as if the valley itself has grown aware of those who traverse it. After dark, the valley becomes a place of heightened perception. Figures are sometimes seen along waterfalls and riverbeds, appearing briefly at the edge of vision. They seem to move deliberately, stepping along rocky outcroppings or appearing near pools that glow faintly under moonlight. Observers often describe them as fleeting, present for a moment and gone when attention shifts. Their presence is not threatening, yet it draws immediate attention, leaving a sense of wonder and unease. Sudden noises echo through the cliffs. Rocks shift or fall in places that appear stable. Branches snap, or a distant crash resonates, yet no animals are present to account for the sound. The echoes travel across the valley, amplified by the steep walls on either side, creating a sense that something unseen is moving just beyond sight. These sounds are abrupt, unexpected, and often repeated in irregular patterns that defy prediction. The combination of figures and sound creates a powerful atmosphere. Hikers report a feeling of being watched, an invisible presence accompanying them along trails or riverbeds. The air seems to carry tension, dense and palpable, pressing lightly on the skin. Every step forward requires awareness, as if the valley itself is guiding movement while maintaining a presence that is both patient and watchful. Even the natural features of the valley contribute to perception. Mist rising from waterfalls refracts moonlight, creating shifting shapes that seem to move independently. Water flowing over rocks produces rhythms that can sound like footsteps when accompanied by the faint echo of cliffs. Shadow and light combine to transform familiar terrain into a landscape that feels alive, unpredictable, and subtly aware. The valley's energy is constant yet subtle. It does not threaten, attack, or harass. Instead, it emphasizes presence, history, and memory. Lava flows frozen in time, rivers carving new paths, cliffs worn by wind and water all hold evidence of immense power and long duration. Visitors feel that this energy extends beyond physical form, creating sensations and perceptions that linger long after leaving the valley. Some hikers describe an intense unease. The feeling is layered, combining sight, sound, and instinct. The figures glimpsed along riverbeds, the sudden echoes from cliffs. And the shifting shadows create heightened awareness and anticipation. Even those familiar with the terrain find their attention drawn to every movement and sound. The valley seems to demand respect and caution, reinforcing the power of isolation and scale. Despite the unease, the valley retains its beauty. Moonlight glints on waterfalls and pools, mist rises like soft smoke, and the stars appear closer than anywhere else on the island. Moonlight glints on waterfalls and pools, mist rises like soft smoke, and the stars appear closer than anywhere else on the island. Moonlight glints on waterfalls and pools, mist rises like soft smoke, and the stars appear closer than anywhere else on the island. Moonlight glints on waterfalls and pools, mist rises like soft smoke, and the stars appear closer than anywhere else on the island. The air carries the scent of wet vegetation and stone, the gentle rush of water, and the faint whisper of wind. Moonlight glints on waterfalls and pools, mist rises like soft smoke, and the stars appear closer than anywhere else on the island. The air carries the scent of wet vegetation and stone, the gentle rush of water, and the faint whisper of wind. Moonlight glints on waterfalls and pools, mist rises like soft smoke, and the stars appear closer than anywhere else on the island. The air carries the scent of wet vegetation and stone, the gentle rush of water, and the faint whisper of wind. Moonlight glints on waterfalls and pools, mist rises like soft smoke, and the stars appear closer than anywhere else on the island. The air carries the scent of wet vegetation and stone, the gentle rush of water, and the faint whisper of wind. By dawn, Waimanu Valley returns to calm. Sunlight warms cliffs and lava flows, rivers shimmer in gold and green, and the forest hums with life once again. Figures vanish with the night, echoes fade, and shadows retreat to familiar forms. The intense awareness of the previous night softens, replaced by appreciation of the Valia's scale, beauty, and geological history. Yet those who explored after dark carry memory. Footsteps along ridges, sudden echoes from cliffs, and the sensation of being watched linger long after leaving. The valley impresses itself on perception, teaching visitors about the power of natural landscapes, isolation, and the subtle interaction of light, sound, and memory. Waimanu Valley remains a place of extremes. It is at once breathtaking and daunting, serene by day and alive with subtle energy by night. Lava flows, riverbeds, and cliffs hold memory and movement, whispering to those who listen closely. Figures appear, sounds echo, and perception is heightened as the valley asserts its presence. For those who enter after dark, the experience is unforgettable. The valley teaches patience, attention, and respect. It reminds visitors that even the most beautiful landscapes can harbor restless energy. That isolation amplifies perception, and that the earth itself remembers what has passed over it. Waimanu Valley on the Big Island endures as both a natural wonder and a place alive with subtle, untamed presence. Kealakekua Bay on the Big Island is a place steeped in history and natural grandeur. Nestled between steep volcanic cliffs and calm, turquoise waters, the bay is both beautiful and somber. It is known as the site of Captain Kuka's death, a moment that shaped Hawaiian and global history alike. The cliffs rise sharply from the shoreline, jagged and blackened by ancient lava flows, creating a dramatic backdrop that seems to guard the bay. Visitors approach with a sense of reverence, aware that every footstep carries them across land that has witnessed extraordinary events. During the day, the bay appears serene. The water glimmers under the sun, reflecting cliffs and clouds alike. Fishermen launch canoes, tourists drift in kayaks, and seabirds circle overhead. Fishermen launch canoes, tourists drift in kayaks, and seabirds circle overhead. The air carries salt and warmth, and the sound of gentle waves provides a natural rhythm that soothes the mind. The air carries salt and warmth, and the sound of gentle waves provides a natural rhythm that soothes the mind. Despite this activity, the cliffs maintain a quiet authority, their steep faces casting shadows that hint at isolation and history. The cliffs maintain a quiet authority, their steep faces casting shadows that hint at isolation and history. As evening approaches, the character of Kealakekua Bay begins to shift. The sunlight fades, leaving the cliffs dark and imposing against a deepening sky. The water reflects the changing light, turning darker and more reflective. Sounds from the shore and ocean soften, leaving only the gentle lap of waves and the distant calls of seabirds. The bay becomes still, and with this stillness comes a heightened awareness of the landscape. It is after dark that the most unusual experiences are reported. Ghostly figures are sometimes seen climbing the volcanic cliffs. They appear faint and distant, their movements deliberate and careful as though navigating the rugged terrain with purpose. They appear faint and distant, their movements deliberate and careful as though navigating the rugged terrain with purpose. Observers describe seeing them pause on ledges or crouch among rocks before continuing upward, only to vanish as if absorbed by the cliff itself. These figures are never threatening. They move silently, creating a sense of connection to those who once traversed the cliffs long ago. They move silently, creating a sense of connection to those who once traversed the cliffs long ago. On calm nights, visitors often notice lights moving across the bay. Small points of illumination drift slowly on the water, appearing and disappearing without explanation. The lights do not follow the movement of boats or reflect nearby sources. They seem to move independently, guided by an unseen hand, tracing paths that mirror the shape of the bay. Observing the lights evokes a sense of quiet awe, a reminder that the bay carries memory within its waters. In addition to these visual phenomena, soft chants are sometimes heard rising unexpectedly from the shoreline. The sounds are low and rhythmic, carrying a tone of devotion and remembrance. They do not form words that are fully intelligible, yet the intent behind the chant is perceptible, as though the shore itself is speaking in harmony with history. The chanting seems to emerge from the earth and rocks, blending with the sound of waves and the whisper of wind. These phenomena are subtle but immersive. They do not overwhelm, yet they draw attention to every detail of the landscape. Each step along the shore, each glance toward the water or cliffs, carries significance. The combination of cliffs, water, and history creates an environment where perception is heightened. Each glance toward the water or cliffs carries significance. Visitors become acutely aware of the contours of the land, the movement of waves, and the rhythm of sounds that might otherwise go unnoticed. Kealakekua Bay's history amplifies the experience. The site of Captain Cook's death. The cliffs and shoreline are tied to stories of conflict, exploration, and cultural intersection. The bay has been a place of life, ceremony, and loss for centuries. These layers of human presence seem to interact with the natural landscape, producing subtle phenomena that visitors perceive as ghostly figures, drifting lights, and chants. The past feels embedded within the cliffs, water, and sand. Standing on the shore after dark, it is common to feel a profound sense of awareness. The cliffs appear more imposing, the water deeper, and the wind more tactile. Temperature shifts and the sound of moving waves contribute to a feeling of immersion. Observers often describe a sensation that the bay is watching or responding to their presence. A quiet attention that is not threatening but undeniable. The ghostly figures climbing cliffs, lights drifting across water, and soft chants. And soft chants combine to create an experience that is both contemplative and mysterious. None of these phenomena rely on dramatic action. Instead, they are subtle, layered, and persistent, engaging multiple senses simultaneously. They encourage observation, reflection, and connection to the bay's history and natural forces. Even for those unfamiliar with the history, the experiences are consistent. The visual impressions of figures and lights, combined with auditory elements, produce a coherent sense of presence that feels authentic. The cliffs, the bay, and the shoreline act as vessels for perception, conveying an atmosphere shaped by both natural and historical forces. Remaining at Kealakekua Bay for extended periods enhances the immersion. The quiet of night magnifies sound, shadows become more pronounced, and subtle movement catches attention easily. Visitors become attuned to the ebb and flow of waves, the rustle of wind, and the interplay of light and shadow along cliffs and water. The space becomes alive in a way that feels both gentle and profound, offering a direct connection to the bay's layered past. Leaving the bay brings a return to ordinary perception, yet memory retains the experience. The ghostly figures on cliffs. The lights across water. And the chance echo in recollection. Leaving a lingering awareness of history in place. Visitors depart with a sense of having been immersed in a space where natural beauty, historical significance, and subtle phenomena converge. Kealakekua Bay is a site of memory, reflection, and quiet mystery. The cliffs, water, and shoreline hold traces of human and natural activity that continue to resonate. Ghostly figures, drifting lights, and soft chants serve as reminders that the past persists in subtle ways, shaping perception and experience. Visitors leave the bay changed, aware that this landscape is alive with echoes of history, waiting to be observed and felt by those who approach it with attention and care. With Diaresis, Pahulu district in Maui stretches along the windward slopes of Haleakala National Park, a place where dense forests meet volcanic ridges and waterfalls plunge into hidden valleys. The land is alive with color and motion, thick with greenery, ancient lava flows, and winding trails that follow streams and cliffs. Even in daylight, the air feels heavy with history, carrying the scent of wet earth, moss, and the ocean breeze that drifts through the valleys. Visitors walking along the trails quickly notice how the forest transforms perception. Bamboo groves sway with the wind, their stalks creating a lattice of shadow and light. Streams ripple over rocks, carrying the sound of movement and life. Yet within this vibrancy, there is a stillness that feels deliberate, a presence that does not belong to the visible flora or fauna. It is here that shadows begin to appear. They move among bamboo stalks and ancient lava tubes with subtle, deliberate motion. Observers describe shapes gliding silently, pausing at junctions of trails, or disappearing behind outcroppings of rock. The shadows do not resemble animals or humans entirely. They are indistinct, sometimes appearing as forms, other times as dark patches that seem to respond to the attention of the viewer. Along the old trails, figures are sometimes seen crossing with quiet purpose. They walk without sound, their movement measured and calm, as though following paths long established. Approaching these figures often results in emptiness. They vanish as suddenly as they appear, leaving only the trail and surrounding foliage unchanged. Those who witness them describe a sensation of being observed, not threatened, yet undeniably present. The wind carries more than the scent of vegetation and rain. It brings whispers that drift through valleys and along trails. The voices are soft and distant, indistinct yet unmistakable, carrying a tone that suggests warning or caution. They are not coherent words, but the meaning is understood, an instinctive impression of vigilance. Visitors report pausing, scanning the surrounding forest, yet no one is visible. The sound seems to emanate from the land itself, rising from rocks, trees, and earth in subtle waves. The combination of shadows, figures, and whispers creates a layered experience. Each element alone is remarkable, yet together they create a sense that the district is alive with awareness. The land holds memory, recalling both the passage of humans and the natural forces that shaped it. Trails that seem ordinary by daylight gain a new depth, and groves and lava tubes feel simultaneously welcoming and watchful. Even movement through the forest is altered. Sounds echo unpredictably, sometimes amplified, sometimes swallowed entirely. The interplay between sound, shadow, and perception heightens awareness, drawing attention to every detail along the path. The lava formations themselves contribute to the atmosphere. Ancient tubes and crevices provide hidden spaces for shadows to emerge and disappear. Sunlight filters through openings, creating fleeting shapes that seem alive. The eye struggles to distinguish between rock, vegetation, and the subtle forms that move among them. The effect is immersive, placing the observer at the center of a landscape that is dynamic and perceptive. Visitors often describe a rhythm to the experience. Shadows appear along trails in moments of stillness, figures move in the periphery. And the wind carries its quiet caution. The forest guides attention without direction, creating a sense that every step is observed. Every step is observed. A reminder that the land has witnessed countless journeys, human and otherwise, and continues to hold them within its folds. The district's history intensifies these experiences. Generations of Hawaiians walked these trails, managed terraces, and observed the movements of water and lava. Their presence lingers, folded into the forest and cliffs. Some suggest that the shadows and figures are echoes of those who walked before. Their memory preserved in the rhythm of land and sound. The whispers in the wind may be a continuation of guidance or caution once given to those who traversed the district. As night approaches, the forest takes on an even more mysterious character. Shadows stretch and deepen, moving fluidly among bamboo stalks and lava rocks. Figures appear more distinctly against the darkened foliage, pacing or standing still along trails. The wind grows stronger, carrying whispers more clearly, urging caution. The interplay of sight, sound, and movement becomes more pronounced, leaving visitors acutely aware of every step and breath. Those who remain after sunset often feel compelled to move quickly along trails, avoiding prolonged exposure in shadowed areas. The sense of presence is heavy, measured, and persistent. Movement must be deliberate. Awareness must be constant. Even the most experienced hikers report heightened intuition and a steady perception that unseen eyes follow along every path. By morning, sunlight transforms the forest. Shadows retract, figures vanish completely. And the wind becomes a carrier of familiar sounds of birds and flowing streams. Trails appear ordinary again, and the landscape feels safe and stable. Yet those who experience the evening hours know the difference. The land of Ka with Diaresis, Pahulu district is perceptive, alive with memory and awareness. That does not disappear with daylight. Ka with Diaresis, Pahulu district remains part of Haleakala National Park. The shadows in bamboo groves. The figures along old paths. And the whispers in the wind remind visitors that the land carries the weight of time and history, inviting respect, attention, and caution. Visitors leave carrying impressions of presence, memory, and the quiet vigilance of the forest. It is not merely a landscape to traverse. It is an environment alive with observation, shaped by centuries of natural and human history. A place where every step is measured, every sound amplified, and every shadow a reminder that the land itself is aware. Waiokele o Puna Forest Reserve on the Big Island is a dense tropical forest carved from volcanic land, where lava flows meet towering trees and thick undergrowth. By day, the reserve is alive with movement. Insects hum through the humid air. Streams trickle along moss-covered rocks, and sunlight filters through the dense foliage in scattered beams. The trails are rich with leaf litter, each step producing a soft, muffled sound that blends with the natural chorus of the forest. Even during daylight, the forest feels immense, isolating, and alive. Shadows stretch long between gnarled trunks, and mist drifts in pockets along the ground, giving the impression of movement even where none exists. The volcanic soil carries warmth, and the heavy humidity makes every breath feel full of the forest itself. As evening falls, the forest transforms. Colors fade, leaving deep greens and dark shadows. The thick canopy blocks much of the remaining light, and the forest floor seems to close in. The rustle of leaves, the creak of a branch, the distant call of an aula all take on heightened significance. The reserve seems to shift subtly, as though attentive to the presence of those who walk within it. Visitors hiking after dark often report hearing footsteps along leaf-littered paths. Yet when they turn, no one is visible. The sound is soft but deliberate, echoing lightly against tree trunks and fallen logs. It is unmistakably human in rhythm and weight, but no companion walks nearby. The effect is disorienting, creating the sense that someone is always just beyond sight, following the trail silently. Fog gathers between trees as night deepens, moving in rolling sheets along the uneven ground. Within the mist, figures sometimes appear. They are faint, almost translucent, and glow with a greenish light that casts an eerie shimmer across the trunks and underbrush. The figures glide rather than walk, moving fluidly between trees, then disappearing suddenly, leaving no trace of passage. Observers describe a mixture of awe and unease, as if witnessing a presence both natural and otherworldly at once. The air itself feels heavy. Hikers report a sensation that is impossible to quantify, a weight that presses gently against the shoulders and chest. It is not oppressive, but it is undeniable. Every inhalation seems filled with awareness, every movement noticed. The forest feels sentient, its attention subtle yet persistent. Even the plants seem to participate in the atmosphere. Moss clings tightly to trunks, swaying lightly with invisible motion. Ferns tremble as though brushing against unseen hands. The humidity becomes thicker, carrying faint scents of damp earth and volcanic minerals that deepen the sensation of immersion in a world that is both alive and alive with presence. The history of Volcanic Puna adds context to the phenomena. Moving through it with respect and caution. That shaped the land. A subtle imprint that becomes perceptible at night. The green glowing figures, the footsteps, and the heavy air can be interpreted as echoes of that spiritual connection. Movement through the forest at night demands attentiveness. Trails can feel longer, more difficult to navigate, and every sound is magnified. The forest seems to respond, making hikers aware of their own presence and emphasizing the boundaries of the human experience within this dense volcanic ecosystem. Fog interacts with light and shadow to create illusions. A branch may appear to shift, a leaf may appear to move with intent. The mind interprets subtle changes as movement, yet some of what is witnessed feels undeniably real. The green glow in the mist, the rhythmic footfalls, the subtle weight in the air all contribute to a profound sense that the forest is aware of those walking through it. Even without direct observation of figures or hearing footsteps, the forest carries its presence. The constant layering of natural sounds, shifting light, and humidity creates an environment that feels alive, charged, and aware. Hikers describe the cumulative effect as immersive, almost as if entering a living organism that observes silently. By dawn, the reserve begins to shift again. Fog lifts gradually, light penetrates the canopy. And the forest returns to its daytime rhythm. The glowing figures vanish with the night. The footsteps fade. The heavy air lightens. The leaf-littered paths seem ordinary once more. To a visitor arriving at sunrise, Volcanic Puna appears untouched. Quiet, and serene. Yet those who experienced the forest at night carry its memory. They recall the ephemeral figures. The footsteps. The green-tinged mist. And the sense of presence pressing subtly against their awareness. These impressions linger, blending the natural beauty of the tropical forest with the intangible energy that defines its nocturnal identity. Volcanic Puna Forest Reserve is more than a collection of trees, trails, and volcanic terrain. It is a living, layered environment, holding the memory of the land, the energy of those who came before, and a persistent awareness that surfaces when night falls. By day, it invites exploration and admiration. By night, it becomes a space of presence, attention, and subtle mystery, reminding visitors that the forest itself is alive and watching. Makapu'u Point rises sharply along the southeastern coast of Oahu, where the cliffs meet the Pacific Ocean in a dramatic blend of volcanic rock and foaming waves. By day, the view is breathtaking. Jagged lava formations stretch along the shoreline, their dark surfaces glowing under the sun. Waves crash against the cliffs below, sending mist into the air. And seabirds will and call overhead. As the sun lowers, the coastal landscape begins to shift. Shadows stretch across the lava cliffs, deepening crevices and altering the appearance of familiar rocks. The wind carries the salt and brine of the ocean inland, and the temperature drops subtly, creating an atmosphere that feels both open and enclosed. The sounds of daytime traffic, walkers, and tourists fade, leaving only the rhythmic crash of the ocean and the distant calls of seabirds. The cliffs seem larger, darker, and more imposing than they did under daylight. Visitors who remain after sunset report seeing figures walking along the lava edges. These shapes appear unexpectedly, outlined against the dark horizon or dim moonlight. Approaching these figures yields nothing. They vanish as silently as they appeared, leaving only the sound of the ocean and the sensation of being observed. The effect is disorienting, as if the cliff itself has shifted to create spaces for presence that cannot be understood. Sudden fog sometimes rolls in from the ocean, blanketing the cliffs and trails. The fog is thick and heavy, carrying whispers and distant cries that seem to arise from the mist itself. The effect is intensified by the uneven ground, echoing walls of lava, and the endless movement of the water below. The fog obscures vision, creating a sense of uncertainty and amplifying awareness of every sound and movement. Every sound and movement. Visitors often describe a physical sensation along with the visual and auditory phenomena. Cold drafts sweep along the cliffs and trails unexpectedly, chilling the skin and seeping through clothing. Some feel pressure on their chest, a heaviness that is immediate and inexplicable. The combination of fog, wind, and isolation heightens perception, making every step cautious, every glance deliberate, and every sound amplified in awareness. The volcanic formations themselves contribute to the intensity of the experience. Lava ridges, fissures, and uneven rock surfaces create irregular shadows that stretch across paths and cliffs. Rocks appear to shift in shape as the eye moves, and the trail sometimes seems to extend or contract depending on perspective. These natural features enhance the sensation of motion where none exists and create visual ambiguity that can make shadows appear animated or alive. The interplay of light, sound, and movement creates an environment that is immersive and layered. Figures appear to stand in silhouette against cliffs or trails. Whispers and cries travel through fog and echo between rock formations. And physical sensations reinforce the perception of presence. The combination makes the summit and cliffs feel alive, attentive, and aware. Even without direct sightings or sounds, the area carries a palpable energy. The effect is cumulative, layering attention and expectation into a sustained, immersive experience that cannot be easily explained. Those who explore Makapu Point at night often describe the experience as both humbling and unnerving. The scale of the cliffs, the endless movement of the ocean, and the ephemeral figures and sounds create a profound sense of smallness and attention. The perception of unseen presence or observation is subtle, yet it pervades the experience and leaves a lasting impression on memory. By morning, the cliffs and trails return to their daytime character. Sunlight warms the volcanic rock, shadows recede. And the fog, whispers, and figures are gone. The ocean appears unchanged, rolling steadily against the shoreline. The perception of presence fades, leaving only recollection. And the subtle knowledge that the cliffs can feel different under the night sky. Makapu Point continues to stand as a place of natural grandeur and subtle mystery. Its lava cliffs endure the ocean, wind, and time, creating a landscape that is both breathtaking and formidable. By day, it is a destination for beauty and reflection. By night, it becomes a space where shadows, whispers, fog, and physical sensation converge, creating an environment that is immersive, enigmatic, and profoundly memorable. For those who traverse the cliffs after sunset, the experience leaves a lasting impression. Figures appear and vanish, whispers and cries carry through fog. Whispers and cries carry through fog, and cold drafts and pressure remind visitors of their own presence within the vast landscape. Makapu Point is more than a summit or trail. It is a space where land, ocean, and atmosphere combine to create an enduring sense of awareness and mystery. A place where the natural and the otherworldly intersect beneath the Hawaiian night sky. Polihale State Park stretches along the western edge of Kauai, a vast expanse of sand and dunes carved atop volcanic soil. The landscape is stark and dramatic, a combination of golden ridges, rugged cliffs, and open vistas that meet the ocean far below. The dunes ripple in soft waves, shaped by wind that moves relentlessly across the arid terrain. Visitors walking the sand feel the weight of the horizon, the emptiness that stretches for miles, and the contrast of volcanic earth beneath their feet. The park is isolated and open, with only the ocean and sky as companions. Footprints left behind by hikers fade quickly in the shifting sand. The wind carries the smell of salt and earth across ridges, filling the air with both freshness and quiet. By day, the park inspires awe and reverence, a place where the elements are on full display and human presence feels small against the vast landscape. As the sun dips toward the horizon, the atmosphere changes. Shadows stretch across the dunes, and ridgelines take on depth and darkness. The temperature drops quickly, and the wind becomes sharper, rustling loose sand and whispering across open space. The cliffs that mark the edge of the park grow darker and more imposing, their details blending into shadow. Even experienced campers notice a shift in perception, as if the park itself has grown aware of the approaching night. After sunset, Polihale takes on a different character. Shadows appear to move across the sand ridges. They rise and fall with the contours of the dunes, fleeting and indistinct. At times they seem to shift against the wind, or bend around ridges as if guided by intent. Those observing from a distance often pause, sensing motion in places that appear completely empty, their eyes drawn to shapes that disappear when looked at directly. Footsteps are sometimes heard behind campers. The sound is soft but deliberate, echoing faintly across the dunes. Steps follow for moments, stopping when attention turns toward them. Figures are glimpsed along the cliffs. Silhouettes appear at the edge of vision, small at first, then taller and more defined against the night sky. They move with purpose, pacing along narrow ledges or standing still in dark recesses. When approached, the figures vanish, blending seamlessly into darkness, leaving only the cliff and the distant sound of waves below. The wind carries sound across the park. It amplifies subtle noises and reshapes them, making rustling leaves or distant waves seem closer or louder. These natural sounds mingle with the perceived footsteps and movement, creating an atmosphere where perception and reality intertwine. Every ridge and hollow draws attention. Every shifting shadow, every sound, every glimpse of movement feels charged with presence. Hikers and campers alike report heightened senses, the feeling of being watched without knowing by what, and an instinct to remain cautious while continuing to explore. Despite the unease, Polihale retains its beauty. The ocean glimmers in starlight, distant cliffs rise like dark monuments, and dunes reflect faint silver light as moonlight spreads across the sand. The night emphasizes the scale and isolation of the park, reminding visitors of the immensity of both the land and the sky above. The combination of shadows, footsteps, and figures creates a lasting impression. Even when no movement is visible, the memory of it persists. The dunes, cliffs, and open spaces appear unchanged in daylight. Yet those who experience the night remember motion, sound, and presence in ways that affect perception long afterward. The park seems alive, carrying energy and history that emerges most clearly in the darkness. By morning, the park returns to calm. Sunlight illuminates dunes, cliffs, and ridges. Footprints are visible and then fade under the warm wind. Shadows shrink, and shapes that appeared during the night are gone. The ocean waves provide a steady, natural rhythm. And the wind settles into a familiar, gentle pattern. Yet the memory remains with those who experienced it. The footsteps, the moving shadows, and glimpsed figures linger in thought. The sensation of being observed, the subtle pull toward cliffs. And the echoing sounds shape perception even after leaving the park. Polyhalia dunes, cliffs, and open expanse hold presence beyond what the eye can see. By day, it offers wonder, solitude, and remarkable vistas. By night, it reminds visitors that isolation amplifies perception, shadows can move, and the land may watch as it always has. Figures vanish, footsteps echo, and the dunes seem alive with energy that is both subtle and persistent. Those who traverse Polyhalia after dark carry memory of a place where beauty and mystery coexist, where sand, wind, and volcanic rock hold stories waiting to be perceived. Iao Valley State Park on Maui is a lush and verdant landscape carved from volcanic activity over countless centuries. Towering green cliffs rise sharply on either side of the winding valley. Waterfalls tumble into deep pools below. Streams meander through the dense foliage. The valley feels timeless, a place where nature and history converge. Steeped in stories of past settlement, battle, and sacred ritual. During the day, the park appears tranquil and alive. Sunlight filters through the canopy, illuminating ferns, palms, and other tropical vegetation. Paths wind carefully along ridges and cliff edges, offering breathtaking views of the valley floor. Visitors notice the texture of the volcanic rock underfoot, the smoothness of worn stone steps, and the persistent presence of water shaping the land. The air carries the scent of damp earth and vegetation, grounding each step in the life of the valley. Even in daylight, there is a sense that the valley is layered with memory. Every bend in the trail, every shadow along the cliffs, seems infused with the traces of human presence long past. Figures once walked these paths, guided by need, ritual, or exploration. And some visitors report glimpses of forms moving along the cliffside. They appear briefly, silhouettes against the green slopes. Approaching these figures reveals nothing, yet the sense of movement remains. As though the valley itself recalls the people who traversed it centuries ago. Voices are another phenomenon experienced by those who explore the park, particularly in the quieter hours of early morning or late afternoon. Soft Hawaiian phrases carry across the valley, rising from the forest floor or drifting down from the cliffs. The sounds are faint but clear, repeating in patterns that seem purposeful. Words of devotion, guidance, and remembrance echo naturally along the ridges, blending with the sound of waterfalls and the wind through leaves. Visitors report a sense of being addressed by the voices, not in fear, but with attention and respect, as if the valley itself is speaking through time. Walking through narrow corridors of rock adds another dimension to the experience. In these confined spaces, the air feels cooler and more immediate. Some visitors feel the sensation of cold hands brushing past them, brief and delicate, like a whisper of contact from the past. There is no physical evidence, no trace of touch remaining, yet the awareness lingers, heightening perception and focus. These subtle interactions emphasize the intimacy of the valley, where nature, geology, and history converge to create a heightened sense of presence. The cliffs and paths of Iao Valley amplify these experiences. Shadows shift as light changes, and narrow rock corridors create spaces where sound behaves unpredictably. Carrying whispers, water flow, and distant movement in ways that seem almost deliberate. Visitors describe a strong sense of being watched or observed, not in a threatening way, but as though the valley acknowledges their presence. History enriches these sensations. Iao Valley was once a site of significant human activity, including sacred ceremonies and important battles. Contributes to the subtle phenomena reported by visitors. Voices repeating Hawaiian phrases, and fleeting touches all feel connected to these layers of history, as if the landscape itself remembers and communicates across generations. The experience of the valley is immersive, drawing attention to every sound, shadow, and movement. Observers report a heightened awareness of the environment, noticing subtle temperature shifts, the texture of stone underfoot, and the interplay of light and mist. Even small environmental quasar, a flicker of sunlight, a ripple in a stream, the faint murmur of wind that carry significance, enhancing the impression that the valley is alive in a way that transcends ordinary perception. Staying within the park for extended periods intensifies the sense of presence. Figures along cliff paths seem to move with a rhythm that aligns with the valley's natural cadence. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena creates a fully immersive experience, where visitors are aware not only of the physical space, but of the layered memory and history it holds. Leaving Iao Valley brings a shift in perception. The sounds of voices fade into memory. The sensation of touch disappears. And the figures along the cliffs no longer appear. Yet the impression remains, lingering as a vivid recollection of a place where nature, history, and human experience converge. Visitors often describe a sense of connection. An understanding that the valley is both present and past. Alive with the imprint of those who walked its paths long before. Iao Valley State Park is more than a lush volcanic landscape. It is a repository of memory, presence, and subtle phenomena. Figures that appear briefly, voices that carry across ridges, and fleeting touches all convey the depth of time and human experience embedded within the land. For those who explore it attentively, the valley offers an unparalleled encounter with history, natural beauty, and the sense of something larger than oneself moving quietly among cliffs, paths, and vegetation. Here, in the heart of Maui, the past and present coexist. Shadows and light, sound and stone, mist and foliage combine to create a space that is immersive, reflective, and profound. Visitors leave changed, carrying with them the memory of figures, voices, and subtle sensations, aware that Iao Valley is alive not only with nature, but with history, presence, and the quiet echo of human life across centuries. Pu'ue'ai arises from the eastern lava plains of Hawaii's Big Island, an isolated volcanic hill marked by steep cliffs and jagged ridges. From a distance, it appears dormant and silent, yet the land carries the weight of centuries of volcanic activity. The surrounding lava fields spread outward like blackened rivers frozen in time, their rough surfaces catching the light in sharp angles. Visitors who approach are struck by the sense of isolation, as if the hill itself has been waiting in quiet observation for centuries. The paths leading to Pu'ue'ai wind carefully along cooled lava flows, uneven and sharp beneath every step. Each footprint leaves an impression in the blackened rock, yet it feels temporary, as though the ground will reclaim it in its own time. The air carries the faint scent of sulfur and earth warmed by the sun, mixing with the ocean breeze that drifts across the plains. Even during the day, the hill radiates presence, an awareness that seems to watch every movement. As visitors climb closer to the summit, shadows deepen among the lava fissures and vents. Some report seeing figures kneeling silently near the glowing vents, still and attentive. The shapes are not immediately identifiable as human, yet they appear to be engaged in devotion or meditation, their forms concentrated on the heat and light rising from the lava below. Approaching the figures often results in nothing, the shapes vanishing as if absorbed back into the rock and shadow. As if absorbed back into the rock and shadow. In the crevices and cracks of the volcanic rock, glowing eyes sometimes appear. They are small, intense points of light, flickering in rhythm with the wind or the movement of the observer. They never advance or retreat, remaining fixed and alert. Those who encounter them often pause, struck by the sensation of being observed by something not entirely of this world. Occasionally, the ground trembles beneath the feet of hikers. The tremors are subtle at first, a gentle vibration that moves through the soles of the shoes, yet unmistakable. There is no eruption, no warning, and no seismic reading indicating activity. The tremors appear to come from deep within the hill, a reminder of the latent power that shaped this land. They are brief but persistent, leaving a lingering awareness of the energy beneath. The combination of kneeling figures, glowing eyes, and tremors creates a profound atmosphere. Every sound is heightened, every shadow seems intentional. And the landscape becomes more than mere rock and lava. Visitors often describe a rhythm to their experience. A cadence dictated by the interplay of light, heat, and movement within fissures. The hill feels alive, attentive, and responsive to the presence of those who traverse it. Walking along the narrow ridges, hikers notice the wind behaving unusually. The wind carries distant sounds, whispers that seem to come from deep within the vents or along the cliffs. The voices are indistinct, melodic in a way that suggests ritual or intent. They are not loud or threatening, but they create a sense of continuity, linking past events to the present moment. The whispers seem to guide attention, drawing the eye toward fissures, vents, or distant shadows. The lava flows themselves enhance the effect. Fissures twist unpredictably, forming pockets of shadow and channels of light. Steam rises occasionally from vents, carrying heat and scent, bending perception and creating illusions of movement. Figures kneel and vanish in these shifting pockets, the glowing eyes appear and fade, and tremors rise and fall without warning. The land is dynamic, not in the conventional sense of life, but in a manner that commands awareness. Even the sky above contributes to the atmosphere. The sun dips behind distant peaks, elongating shadows and changing the angles of light through fissures. Colors on the blackened lava shift subtly, enhancing the impression of movement and life in forms that are difficult to identify. Visitors who linger long enough report an accumulation of sensation. The figures, the eyes, the tremors, and the whispers create a layered experience that is immersive and tangible. The hill demands attention and respect, revealing its mysteries only to those willing to observe carefully. Each step becomes deliberate, each pause meaningful, and each glance along fissures filled with expectation. By nightfall, darkness deepens the shadows. Tremors occasionally pulse. Whispers in the wind become more pronounced. The experience is not threatening. Yet the combination of effects heightens alertness. And instills a sense of reverence for the land. When morning arrives, the hill appears unchanged. Light illuminates lava ridges. Shadows retract. And the flickering eyes vanish. The tremors cease, leaving only solid rock beneath the feet. Yet those who experienced the night remember vividly. The figures kneeling, the points of light in crevices, and the subtle pulses of the ground. And the sense that Pu-Ua continues to observe and respond. Pu-Ua, Big Island, remains a place of power and mystery. Its isolated summit, jagged cliffs, and lava vents preserve a landscape alive with subtle presence. Visitors encounter figures, glowing eyes, tremors, and whispers that hint at forces both natural and otherworldly. The hill is not merely terrain to traverse but an environment that commands respect, attention, and awareness, a monument to the enduring and enigmatic energy that shaped it. Thank you for walking through the haunted volcanic parks of Hawaii with me tonight. These lands are alive, not just with lava and steam, but with memory, sorrow, and the echoes of those who have passed. Every crater, ridge, and lava tube carries a story, some of devotion, some of tragedy, and some of lingering spirits that never left. If you ever find yourself standing on a volcanic ridge after dark, listen carefully. The land may be speaking, and the heat may carry whispers from another time. Would you dare explore these haunted volcanic parks at night, walking among shadows, heat, and ghosts, or would you retreat to safety while the fire sleeps? Rest well, my friend. Until our next haunted journey.